Welcome to the Love Local Chicagoland Podcast. Here we invite people from our local communities to share their stories and their voices. Through amplifying their message, we share their genuine human experiences that connect us all. Our goal is to make our communities more than just a place to live, but instead, a place to thrive. Tune in to hear what makes our communities so special right here on the Love Local Chicagoland Podcast.
The Love Local Chicagoland Podcast is made possible with the generous support of our community partners. Thank you.
Hey, what's going on, friends? Jason here with the Love Local Chicagoland Podcast. I am super excited to introduce you today to Kimberly Dahlem. My friend, she is a local coach that helps people live better lives. And she's had one heck of a story. You're going to hear about her childhood. You're going to hear about her 30 years of education and being in the education system. And you're going to hear a little bit about her story with a story that you might be well aware of, being local in the area of Mark Dahlem. He's a police officer that passed away in 2019 from brain cancer, I believe. And I have his wife sitting across the table to me today, and I'm really excited for you all to get to know her. She is a trailblazer in her own right. She is leading courageously, and she's doing good things. So I'm excited to walk her through her story and also talk a little bit about her coaching business. But enough of me talking. Let me introduce you to Kimberly Dahlem. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. I'm excited to be here today, and thank you for Love Local for sponsoring me to come on today. It is very, very exciting.
Yeah.
As you and I had the opportunity to meet through a common network, and we really just hit it off in our initial conversation. So we said, what the heck? Let's come to the table. And this is the first time I've ever gone on a podcast, so I'm definitely just novice at this process. So I look forward to you leading me through the process today, but excited to jump in and take this journey together.
Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation. We do it because podcasting in general, just because of stories. So stories for us matter. We think stories locally are powerful when we could be curious and share stories from within our local communities. The 6 degrees of separation is like super real.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you know that from being in Palatine.
Yes.
Like now that we're connected, I look on your Facebook and we're connected to like so many different
We
people.
really are.
So the power of the 6 degrees of separation and the power of stories and perspective within those stories, I really think that could shape the communities, and you're a part of that. So we were super honored to have you as your first podcast as well. And I promise you, it'll be very easy. We'll just have a conversation about you and just about your journey and what you've learned along the way, with really a focus in on gratitude. I think that's going to be a big piece in resilience, because you got a lot to be grateful for, but you've gone through some things in your life. So I want to start, just kind of tell people who you are.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm just Kimberly. I'm a mother. I am a wife. I'm a widow, a daughter. But in the grander scheme of things, I would say that I am an influencer, as well as an educator by heart, a leader, a coach, a mentor, all of those things. And I think we'll touch on some of those various topics today, but that's a little bit, I guess, like a sneak peek as to who I am. Yeah,
no, you're a creative soul that is not just one thing. And I think, I think is a pretty cool way to be able to like look at life. Like none of us are just one thing, and how you describe that, like we have a lot of important roles within our lives, and life's hard sometimes, and having a basis that is, around gratitude and being resilient, which we'll dive in today, is important. I didn't always know that. Now gratitude's like, to me, it's like, oh, you just got to be grateful for something, and that changes your whole perspective. So to be able to dive into this with you and talk about gratitude, as we get through your story, what I want people to know is like, why is gratitude for you such an important theme in your life?
Really, it's the pillar of my existence. I have a strong faith base, and I feel like I've always led my life, personally and professionally, in that theme of gratitude. I've gotten really good at the stillness and the quietness and finding what steps are next on my journey, because they're there. They present when you can be still. And I learned to harness that at a very, very young age. I think I've always been surrounded by wonderful mentors, very loving family members, and very lucky in that regard. And that is really my earliest memories. But instead of ever looking at, something has happened to me, it's really something that has happened for me. And I think having really young, great models early in life, that's where that gratitude had started. And it just has carried me on. And that's how I parent, and that's how I really present every day.
Yeah, it's a really unique way to look at life, and but to me, it's really important because like life's hard. Like there's no
Absolutely.
Part of the human experience is this waves that we call life. Like there's highs and there's lows, and all of our highs and lows are different. They tie into similar emotions sometimes, but they're different, right? How do you think leading with gratitude and that type of mindset, how do you think it shaped your journey overall?
It's provided purpose. So leaning into gratitude has provided purpose, which then ultimately has defined my why. And I think that's thrown around very generally. It's gotten a lot of public regard in different writings and different influencers. But quite honestly, I think that has allowed me to have purpose, knowing that I lean into gratitude, which ultimately is my faith. And your faith can help guide you when you don't know what that next step is.
Yeah.
You might not see that whole staircase, but you can definitely take the next step and do the next thing.
Yeah, you could feel it when you have faith, right? Like if you're listening to your intuition, and you go in that direction. To me, it's definitely a more joyful way of living. Like I haven't always lived joyfully. Now I look back, 10, 15 years ago, and it'd be like, oh man, like that was like it's kind of a sad life. Like there was a 10-year period where I'm like, oh, what was I doing? Because I wasn't living with purpose. I wasn't doing those things. So for you to have the struggles from early on and then to take that up with you, I think is just really something that a nugget that I know I could take away from, but I know other people can as well. Can we take people back to your childhood? Like your time goes quick. We're both 27. We've already declared this.
Absolutely.
Yes, 27 for life. We're going with it. But take us back to your childhood and some of the stories you want to share there.
Sure. A lot of memories of family. I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago, so earliest memories would be the 3700 block of Odell, so that's northwest side near the hip Harlem Irving Plaza. But very vivid memories of a red radio flyer wagon and taking that up and down Addison, being a parishioner and a young student at St. Priscilla, and working for and with the nuns. I would teach school in my basement, which my parents obtained some old school desks, and I would spend my allowance money, so my pennies and my nickels, getting little pieces of candy and using those as rewards from those like fresh dittos that you would get from the room in Catholic school. So very early on, I knew that I would be an educator. I come from a long line of educators.
Were you inspired by the nuns, or like what was the?
I loved the nuns. I have Sister Lucy. Is somebody that really sticks in my mind. But I have a really fond memory of Catholic school when I was young. And usually you're in circles and that isn't. People are like, do you remember the ruler? Do you remember the paddle? Those types of things. And that wasn't really what I remember. I remember the learning. I remember loving going up and diagramming sentences on the board. Let me take the milk crate down and get the milk, or like clean the chalkboard, like silly things that other people probably don't have the same memories. But I just remember loving learning and loving helping others to learn. And I would say philanthropy started for me very young at that time too. We would put on talent shows and gather money and bring it to the convent for the nuns and donate that. So very early on, as an educator, as an entrepreneur, as a philanthropist, and that really followed me along, that I knew that I wanted to get into education.
So, yeah, philanthropy, like, what does that look like? That's like people that are out there, like they think that's just like fiscal things, but that's not.
No, there's so many different ways that you give.
Yeah,
You
it's
find
about
causes
giving,
and you
right?
give.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's give, so it's definitely money, but there's like time. What else?
Yeah, it's time. It's finding a need and maybe solving a problem and helping to bring resources to whatever that is. And those are done on small scales and large scales. And so I've always found ways to impact systems and to give of myself in different versions of myself throughout my time. I did have very young parents, and I am the oldest of 3, but my dad was an alcoholic, and that was really hard. It brings emotion.
Sure.
Oh, excuse me.
No, all good. Dan, can I get the tissues? Yeah. No, you're good. You're not the first person.
I have one here.
No, you're good. Yeah, listen, you're not the first person to cry.
take a second
You're
here.
not the first person to
no,
cry
fine.
on the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But it
real.
allowed me to grow up quick.
yeah.
And I say allowed because I think it gave me opportunities, and I look at those as opportunities. And so it shaped a lot of my fabric.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah, for
it's
sure. But I was also surrounded by so much love.
yeah.
And so I've never lost that within those times of not feeling safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I can only imagine what that would feel like. You know, it's especially as a child when you don't completely understand really what's going on around you. This is just your lens to the world of a very small lens, right?
Yeah.
That's difficult to be able to go through that. Like, how do you think that shaped you? I hear you're a giver. You. And it comes from a philanthropy piece, but you're an organizer of sorts. Like you want to understand what this is, and then you're gonna like build something for it. I'm getting that for you, but like, how do you think that's helped shape getting that upbringing? How do you think that's like helped shape you?
I think in many different ways. So one is compassion. It really helped me to grow in my compassion for others, as well as to take a strong, level of advocacy for mental fitness and mental health and to help others through that lens. It also made me a driver. It also made me very controlling, which I've learned to let go of control as I've gotten older and as life has presented itself. The more you try
to grab control on one of those waves.
The universe just laughs at you, and they're like, "Ha-ha! I will present you with X or Y or Z." So you just you have to let it go. And I think I've had a couple big happenings or occurrences in life that have really challenged me in those ways. But I would say compassion, I grew in that way, as well as knowing how to become a driver and make things happen and to be able to impact and or help others. So that helping spirit grew more and more because it was a position that I held within my family, but it's a position that I found that was effective. And so then that was something that as I grew into a young professional and somebody that gave on a larger scale, it's something that definitely followed.
Sounds like you grew up like really quick.
I did really, really quick.
Yeah, it's no, I give you credit. Not everybody could pull it all together for whatever different reasons. So it sounds like the gifts God's given you
Resilience
helped you stick with it. It helped you be resilient. Help give you the tools you needed to be able to transform yourself and help, but also do some transformation and support around you too, especially as we continue to grow and evolve in this conversation, not just your family life. As the oldest child in a family with unique challenges, what lessons did you learn about resilience and love, and how have they stayed with you?
Boy, that's a big question, Jason.
We don't like small talk here.
No, you definitely don't. Holy cow. I would say intention. That's the word that comes to mind based on an answer to that question. That intention and purpose, and always to walk with intention. I never, since an early age, having to grow up so quick and to move through and to be resilient, to be intentional as to what my next step is. maybe not always knowing it, but having a feel. I can tell you this. I have always felt that I'm supposed to be in that place at that time. Like, I'm supposed to be at your table today.
Yeah.
Every role I've ever taken,
I agree with that.
yeah, every room I've ever entered, it's a feel. And when it's not anymore, I go.
Yeah. It's time to remove yourself.
I do.
Right? Yeah.
I go. Yeah.
I've had some of those stories where I removed myself, not knowing what I was doing, but then realizing, oh, there's joy on the other side when you remove yourself from those places that don't give you your best self. I think at least that was my experience.
I just never let anybody steal my joy.
Yeah.
People try.
That's smart.
People try.
Yeah.
You can't have positive without negative or without that challenge.
Sure.
And I've always held tight to that.
Yeah.
And not let anybody take that from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important. That's all we have. Really? Right? Like, isn't that all we have?
One of the only.
Happiness like, on earth. I mean, there's love, but happiness for sure. Like, life is better joyful.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is. So, next question I have for us. You're had your childhood. You went to school. You did all that sort of stuff. You got out. You got into education. Mm-hmm. You knew that from an early age with the nuns. You served for over 30 years as an educator. Tell us about that experience.
So rich, so amazing. So many wonderful stories through my time. As an adolescent, I gave time in special needs camps, as well as within high school, I would work within the special education department. And so it became a passion and a love of mine. And so I chose a college that had a strong special education program. And that defined what area I wanted to go into. And so I explored that and was very lucky to have amazing student teaching or internship, if you will, opportunities and fall into a place where I needed to be. So much of my time in that 30 years was throughout high school, as a teacher, as a coach, as a counselor, as an administrator, amazing mentors throughout that time and along the way. I remember when I was going to go into administration, there was a very strong female mentor of mine that was like, you should do this. And I said no. And she's somebody that I went back to the well to a couple different times and worked with and partnered with her. Pretty amazing. But I also remember a gentleman, he was actually my principal in high school. And then fast forward to one of my first jobs in the same district, but a different high school. And I was going to jump into administration. And he said, I need to tell you something. And I said, what? He said, if you want to be liked, get a dog. And I was like, what does that mean? And he said, administration can be pretty lonely. And
I can see that.
Yeah, he was right in certain regards, but I worked in amazing districts with phenomenal teams and great people. But I was also a woman that was rising. And I wouldn't say that education is a ladder. People will say you're climbing the ladder. I would say it's a jungle gym. And so you might not have a title, but you still may be a leader. And so I fall into that category, I would say, in many regards. But I did climb that ladder. I climbed that ladder, and I had amazing male and female mentors throughout the time. But I also had people that were not as favorable. They didn't support. And you get that in any industry.
Is it political? I'm guessing it is.
It is
right?
absolutely political. And so, ageism and sexism are real. That was something as of late that I had been privy to, and that part's unfortunate, but it is real. It's part of our world. It exists. I had strong male mentors.
Yeah. When you talk about ageism, sexism, what did you see and what did you experience?
Well, it would depend on the year or the time. There'd be different times, and it wasn't often, but I did have different times where it was, men have the ideas, women make that work, or not being invited to the table, but me making my space at the table and bringing myself and my ideas in there, or being in there because you're the token female, but that voice isn't to be truly heard or listened to.
Was that like mean token female? Is that like you're just like hitting a quota type thing? Is that like that thought process?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Where, sometimes those promotions were, I would say every single one of them were earned, but each time it would be here is the bump, or here's where your next spot is, but then always some type of backhand that would come with that. So I always found my way to impact systems and mentor young women throughout my time within education. Women can be terrible too. I mean, there are some women that
it's part of the human experience. Some of us are just shitheads. I'll just say,
not helpful, or they don't want to. They're threatened by you, right? And I have been told that I am too strong, that I am too opinionated, that people are afraid to approach me. I think that happens as a boss, but you don't hear that as much with men. It's okay if you're a man and that happens, but if you're a woman, then you're seen as a bitch, or you're seen as non-approachable, or you don't want to be collaborative. And that certainly isn't the case. I think we're in a position, just as other minorities many times, that you really have to kind of push your way in. And so that has been difficult. I've been told you look good in a skirt, but you're in the room. I've been told to leave a room because I'm a female. I've been told you won't never know what that's like to sit in this chair because I, was asked to do something that is, and I think we'll talk a little bit about it, but keys on the table. And I have a very strong code of ethics. Yeah. And I will never cross that line in my personal or professional life. But there's difficulty that's come with that.
Let's come back to that. Let's dive into that issue a little bit. What is that? Is it a society issue? Is it something from the past that we're changing to move forward? In your opinion, that ageism, sexism, I hear it from other people too. What is the issue? Is it within each of those people? What's your opinion? Just be real.
Well, I can only speak to my experience. And for my experience, it was a few individuals. And those individuals were influenced by some outside, I guess, measures, if you will.
Sure.
And instead of looking at the person, looking at the ability, looking at really the quality, they chose to be influenced in another way. I think sometimes it comes from an insecurity, stating that maybe an individual may want to change, or an organization or a society might want to change, but do they really? So we'll take it to here, but we're not going to take it to here.
Because those people have to go in and fix their shit. And I don't know if everybody could do that.
Yeah, I don't know. They will. Yeah. And those aren't areas that, I wish to control or be part of. And so I've loved my career. I love my current career. I've loved everything that I've been able to impact and to make changes. I wouldn't not have wanted to go through them. I think every experience is super rich.
Goes back to that trailblazing piece that I said earlier. Yeah. For whatever reason, you're not the only one that has felt that way, and there's a lot of different stories that are in our society. Well, none of us are perfect as humans, so I think grace and all this stuff has to be included in this, because we all are learning and growing, and that's really important. I'm not a perfect man when it comes to this as well, but at the end of the day, it's something that's real within our society that if we don't address, we can't get over that hump. And I look at my young daughter and I'm like, no, go get it, girl. Run shit over. And to think that to live in a world that ageism, sexism stuff is a play, best idea wins out. Point blank, and that could be from a man or a woman. That's what a leader should be pushing out, in my opinion. I was not in your shoes. I'm talking more as an overall societal piece. Yeah. All right, we talked about keys on the table. You touched base on it a little bit.
Sure.
Talk to me about that, and how does it play in part here?
Over my career, I have hired so many people, and it had become one of my favorite interview questions. It tells a lot about an individual because it allows you to see a little bit into their soul and ethically where they stand. And so it would be a question that I would toss in probably mid or close to the end of an interview, but what are your keys on the table? And what I mean by that is, what would happen in this partnership that you would say, no more, I can't do that, I'm out, I tag out. And it'd be pretty amazing. So if you have a new young educator, if you had somebody that was a little bit more seasoned, I think it would vary. But I was always looking at the impetus, students first, children first, whomever we're serving first. So what does it mean within their servant leadership, and what does it mean within their code of ethics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you put your keys on the table.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah.
So I put my keys on the table, and that was pretty tumultuous.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, brave, definitely brave. And I feel that I've stepped into that bravery and vulnerability a few times very publicly in my life. That does not come easy.
Yeah.
But it needed to happen.
Yeah.
It needed to happen.
Paint a picture of what happened through that period. Like, you don't get, don't share anything you don't want to share, but anything that you want to share.
Sure. The last few years have been absolutely wonderful, and then also healing coming out of the pandemic, as everybody has. And so taking care of yourself, taking care of others, taking care of the system by which you are set to serve. And I stepped into the superintendency race. And I have to tell you that, there were a few of us that were in there, and my dear colleague who is the seated superintendent, and I have utmost respect for him. I still have utmost respect for the district. I have children in the district, or a child left in the district. So it was an amazing experience, but it was a year-long, pretty grueling process. And there were some pieces within that process that were not things that I would say above board, above board, and very much to the end. And so those are unspoken things. Those are things, if you speak to, you're boxed out. But they're also things that, for me, grated at that fabric. Within that time,
It was like your ethics, your morals.
my ethics and morals. And so there came a time towards the end of the race, and I was asked to do something that were my keys on the table, and I absolutely would not do that. And so I chose silence, I chose to step away, and I chose to create an exit plan for myself, which is not something that generally happens, and generally happens with women in education. And when that happens, you need to know that the curtain drops, you're done, you are ostracized, you will not be spoken to, and you are in that secret circle of upper leadership that you are untouchable. Nobody will approach you. And
you give up your pension, right? Like is that
no,
part of it, or is that
none of that. All of that is still there, but I stepped away, and I stepped away knowing that I wasn't at the age of, I guess, maturity, so I wouldn't collect yet. So I'm still, in my 50s, if you will. So. But
27. Come back to it.
Sorry.
We're here. Okay.
But anyway, I stepped away. Prior to what your official retirement would be.
Okay.
Which, if you're in the public system, it's this. How can you do that? And truth be told, your pension should be one investment of many that you have if you're doing it and you're doing it right. But for me, keys on the table happened, and so that is the step away.
Yeah. Well,
for sure.
You led in courageously, and you followed your heart and your gut, your intuition, all of that. And that's not always easy to be able to do. So I don't know all the specifics of it, but I give you credit for being able to be real with yourself and to be able to just do it, because that's risky, especially when you're that close to retirement, just to be able to walk away and to be able to, start your own business and to be able to do your own coaching. I give you credit. As you reflect on the career that you've had in public education, advocating for children with special needs and mental health challenges, and like what lessons from this time have been most impactful and fulfilling for you personally, even through the hard times?
Sure. I would say lessons of pivot points.
Yeah.
So pivot points and resilience. So how do you renew? How do you hold in that basis of gratitude? And how do you move forward? So it's not what happened to you, it's what's happened for you. A door is closed, that means another door opens. I know that sounds very cliche, but it's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Sure.
And so to know in your core when it's time to walk away is such a powerful place to be.
Yeah.
And also to the other lesson in that is to let them. So to walk away, it doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what stories individuals want to spin. That's okay. They own that. And a way that people may think of you or think of a situation is no business. Yeah. It's none of my business. None of that.
And who cares?
No, you don't. You focus
how
on.
You reflect on you.
You focus on moving forward. And for me, Jason, another answer to that question is doing the best for my two little humans, and they're not little humans, young humans, but my Abigail and my Jack. And so anything that I do, I lead with purpose. I lead with purpose in the sense that I'm modeling for them. And so they're always watching. They're watching from the minute that they enter this earth. Yeah. And so I take that very seriously. That's my most proud piece of work, and it's also the best job I've ever had in my life, being a parent.
It is fun being a parent.
It really is. It's fun being a parent. It can be terrifying at times. You know, you have all the emotions, the whole ride, but it is about intention and being able to model for them.
Yeah, it's we got to leave this earth better than we found it. So we got to double down on our kids, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And teach them the ways of fighting through things, fighting literally, but fighting through things and the hard things of life with resilience and bringing in gratitude into them so they could teach their kids, and we can continue that, because that's a trend that you should continue to continue to go through, because life is full of storms. Your next storm, my friend, had to come by surprise for you, and with the loss of your husband. 2019. Many people, a lot of Palatine people watch this, so I know they know Mark. I actually did one of our first videos for Oak Alley Saloon in a memory, not a memory, but it was a fundraiser, I think, for him after his passing. And you saw the community come together. So share that story, because you talk about grief and being resilient and trying to get gratitude when you lost your husband. It might be the hardest thing I would think any human would have to go through.
Yeah. It was pretty tough, absolutely. So we're coming up on his 6-year anniversary on February 5th here. So it's poetic that we speak of him, and he's always with us. It was Thanksgiving in 2017, and he wasn't feeling well. And Mark and I had our separate group of friends, joint friends, but we did a lot of entertaining, and he really wasn't feeling good the week of Thanksgiving. And after Thanksgiving, he went to work, and he called, and we didn't talk during a work day ever. I mean, one of our children would have to have a limb that was severed. But we really, we dove into our work, and we would reconvene every night. And he just said, "Babe, I have such a headache." And it had just been a couple months prior that we were like, okay, we're in our early 40s. It's time to get GPs just in case. And so he called the gentleman up. He went after work, and I got a call and said, "You need to come down to the emergency room." And I was like, "What? This doesn't make sense." They found a mass on his brain, and we were off to the races. So he had his first brain surgery 48 hours later. We learned within 4 weeks of pathology that he had GBM grade 4, which is unfortunately a death sentence. And I hope someday we find
something blastoma.
Glioblastoma.
I think that's what my grandma had too.
Glioblastoma. And so there's various grades. Yeah. When you, grade 4 is a very difficult sentence to receive. So we were off to the races. So between there and 2019, we fought the great fight and gave him the Disneyland of care. We were in trial studies with Duke University as well as Northwestern, sharing in his care until the very end. And it was an interesting time because we were young. We were both public servants. We were very involved. He was a coach in our local, community for Little League and such. And we just gave. That was our purpose. Two middle class folk that just loved serving, and we wanted to do better than our parents did and provide for our kids. So pretty humble, pretty simple people. And what we found in that is there was truly a story. And so we educated as we learned with others. So on the back end of that, I've been able to help about 30 families. And it might just be a phone call. It might be that I hang with them for, a year, and I'm behind the scenes, and we chat and we talk about their trials and tribulations. But it was the most difficult, heart-wrenching, painful experience I've ever been through. I've been able to lean into my faith and to have gratitude, because to have a dad like Mark and a husband like Mark and a best friend in that, and you can ask folks that were in our sphere. I mean, we could go head to head, very strong personalities, but so much love at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That
Beautiful.
was so hard that it just leaves.
Yeah.
So he's with us and with me all the time. I always feel him.
Yeah.
We were able, I think, to share within that grief that there is gratitude. I feel immensely blessed to have had him in my life, and to feel so loved and to feel so honored. And he was so loyal to everybody that he would interact with. And to that, people don't get that. I mean, there's people that never experience that in their life.
Yeah.
So I think that has given me so much strength and fortitude to move forward. We were blessed by the communities that help support and lift us up. But I also give thanks, because that was a time before COVID. And then my heart just wrenches for how many people lost people during that time that didn't get to say goodbye and didn't have the opportunities that we had. So that is never lost on me. And I've continued to give back. And I think that's why the counseling piece grew for me so much. I do have a master's in counseling. It's one of my many degrees. I love learning. I love doing all that. But the
Goes
coaching,
all the way back to the nuns.
it does. But the coaching and counseling together, through all of these pivot points that I've had in life, and have had these individuals that have just graced me with their presence, with their knowledge, that has made me who I am today. And also just the blessing to be able to have the ability to move into a second career in your 50s.
Yeah.
Not everybody does that.
Your second mountain but now you're going at it with full of intentionality and
Totally.
purpose. How cool is that? Think of it.
Yeah,
right?
it's pretty amazing. It's pretty scary to be
probably
vulnerable.
pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had to get good at marketing myself, and so you get your posse of your 25 people, and so when you're posting, they're like, love, 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 and everybody else is like, oh, what is she doing?
Yeah.
And you just have to let that flow and go, because the phone rings off the hook and you have those opportunities to sit down and to network, and life is so much richer, that I'm really thankful for doing this at this time of my life. And and in Mark's name and in honor of my kids.
Yeah. So you're you go back to God puts us through the ringer into the storms of life. To me, what I'm learning, it's in the book called the Bible too. It's those waves help transform us so that we could transform others. So now your husband's gone. You've gone through all this with your education system, where you just stood up for what you thought was right, didn't care about what anybody else did, to make Dahlem Enterprises, really in loving memory of your late husband.
Yes.
To take all of your struggles and the things that you've learned along the way, and how you've overcame them with gratitude, resilience, and now help others. Tell people a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with public and private clients, either individually or collectively, to essentially solve problems they don't know that they have. What is special about my approach is it's a mix between counseling and coaching. And I wouldn't say it's mentorship in the middle. I would say it's two actually very distinct things. And I sign on with them. It could be for 6 sessions. It could be for a half year. It could be a year. I have all different kinds of contracts that I have out there. And I help work with their executive coaches. And so that's more of that very public way that I'm helping various individuals and companies. The other side is that I get hired just to work with an individual. That they're like, hey, I'm kind of going through this life change, or I know that you come from a background, having a father as an alcoholic, for moving through education, for being a woman in leadership, that you're a force to be reckoned with, but also how did you navigate all of those things? Or I need a female opinion as a male, sit with me. And it's a safe space to do that. I am doing it for one educational type entity, but the others are all private. So it has been so very rewarding and out of the box and different from other companies that do, consulting and coaching. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's a labor of love. It comes from the heart, and it has really grown. And when I received calls as I was going through superintendency and folks were saying, if you don't get this, come work for me here and do this and do that. So when I stepped out, I knew I would have a soft landing.
Sure.
And
that's a good feeling.
I started that, but in order to carry out what my vision was, I hired a therapist and I hired an executive coach, and I went through the process myself. And as I was building that in the background of the fabric, I walked that walk because I think that's what makes it special, that I walk the walk and talk the talk, and I meet people where they're at and find out what their goals are, and then I'm with them for a short time or a long time, depending.
Yeah, it seems like a true passion for you.
It really
we met kind of off the whim through a connection. I think, as we stated earlier, a local Palatine resident, I'm glad we connected because I think stories matter, and people being able to express their opinion and get their story out there are important. But more so, like, you're going after it. And my hope is like when people listen to this, that they inspire to go after it in their own way, because it's, life's hard. So why do something you don't want to be in the room for? It doesn't fuel you up. That doesn't give you, you talked about intention. It doesn't make you feel intentional. So I love how you've taken everything within your story and now you're doing good with it, with your own business. I'm looking forward to seeing you fly. I'm guessing you're probably going to have, I feel a little Mel Robbins-esque. You're probably going to have your own podcast someday. So we do know a studio that can help you. We mean that all jokingly, but halfway serious. We're here and to help you amplify your voice because I think you have something to say. It's already been proven, and I feel like you're just getting started. What advice would you give to someone going through hard times? You've gone through a lot. We talk about resilience. We talk about gratitude. What advice would you give to people?
My first advice is just do the next thing. And if you're down and out, it could be... Take the next breath, get up, brush your teeth, get dressed. I had days like that in grief once my husband had passed.
Oh, God.
Those are tough, but, kids need to get where they need to go. You need to be processing. But really, it's do the next thing. And then eventually you get them to a mindset where there's really endless possibilities. There truly are endless possibilities. It's just being present and letting yourself get guided. That doesn't mean don't put in the work. You got to put in the work.
Yeah,
I know
it's
how to
gonna
hustle.
Be hard.
I can work. Make that.
Especially when you're talking about grief, you got to go through the darkness to see the light. There's no way around it, right?
And not to be afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah,
I have been.
It's key.
I have been. That is probably two things that people would get. You're not vulnerable enough. Show who you are. Don't be so robotic. You get that, but when you go through public education and you go through any public system. You know how to put your armor on. You're putting armor on to walk into that next meeting. You're putting armor on to walk into that next room. Not all the time, but some of the time. And the tables that I was at, I was coming in because I was coming in to clean something up, or I was coming in because people weren't doing well. It's been so nice to have that armor off and to soften. But holy cow, to lean into vulnerability has been super scary.
Well, you came from things coming at you. You're a firefighter of sorts. I'm guessing that type of job would be as administrator. So now you get to create it. And you get to help others create their best versions of themselves as they go through that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a different... I would say it's probably a more peaceful way of life.
It really is. Yeah. It's so peaceful. I've learned to love again. I have passions within what I do. Learned how to hike in the last year. I went back and I took swimming lessons. I love to travel. I have been in a lovely relationship. And that was a relationship that others were like, oh my goodness, how could you be in that relationship? Well, it's an amazing person that, became friends with, and that became more. But to explore different possibilities and different opportunities that are out there, I say yes more than I say no. Where before, I think some of the training is you hold, trust yet verify, which I still do that in my personal life. But the other part is take the risk, lean in, try it out, and then make the determination. And you can do that when you're, an army of one, when you are your own boss. It's a little bit more difficult, when you're in a larger system. And that's no fault to anybody. I think there's a purpose in having checks and balances there. And like I said, I honor and admire every organization I've ever worked for and learned from.
Yeah. Now you're here on your second mountain and you're helping people do life better. Where do you think your drive to make an impact? Whether it was the school stuff, I heard that throughout. Obviously, with what you're doing now to be able to help people, lead better lives is very impactful. Like, where do you think that comes from?
My core.
Yeah, just who you are.
It's
right?
my fire. It's my fire in my belly. It's who I am on this earth. I am a change agent. If you want to make change, you want me at your table. And I don't sugarcoat things. I do have grace about me. I say I age like a fine wine, right?
27-year-old fine wine.
Yeah. No, I think I was a little bit more of a bull in a china shop when I was younger. Not gonna lie about that, and people can attest to that, both personally and professionally. But because I've always been such a passionate person, and you harness that, and you grow and you learn. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. We're when we get to our truest selves, and we're not, in my opinion, not living somebody, being in somewhere where you're not feel like you should be anymore, but you're doing things that that fire you up. Like, that's who we are at our core. Like, so to me, like, when I hear you talk, I really hope you continue to go, but to inspire people to go.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't like that corporate job, go make something else.
People are so afraid.
You can make your own thing right now with this, and you can have your own business and your own brand with this, some mics, some lights, and a voice. And,
I agree.
And you can make change. We can make a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean this directly. We could cut out the middleman with this, and we could go to each other as small business owners and
we do
as
that.
leaders, and we do,
Yeah.
but continue to do that so that we can help each other thrive. Because at the end of the day, like, the world's changing completely. So for us to be able to help take care of each other and with our own gifts, who God made us to be, which is in our core, is so important. And I hope people hear this and are like, "What? This excites me," and they just start chiseling away at it, because I'm hearing you go, it's just a chisel, right? Like, it's not. It's a little bit day by day, right?
Yeah.
Last question, then we'll get to your call to action. What excites you about the future?
Wow. The amount of people I'll continue to be able to inspire, and those that will inspire me, because my eyes are wide open. I feel that I am more present now than I've ever been in my entire life, and that excites me. The amount of spaces that I'm invited into to learn from and to make impact, I hope that continues to be a ripple effect. And as I had touched on endless possibilities, I believe in that. I definitely believe in that, and to truly continue to build on my legacy. I think there's just various chapters in our overall legacy, and I'm nowhere near done. But this is one of the most exciting times I'm entering in my life, and
Beautiful.
I can't wait.
Yeah, well, I thought that was the last question, but now I have another one.
For it.
As you look out into the future, if you look out 5 years, what do you see? And how are you living?
Yeah.
Gratitude at that time.
I'll continue to publish, and so I have a children's book that is about to be published, as well as an adult anthology, which is neat. And we'll see where podcasting takes me. You're the guy. You're the guy that I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this with Jason.
That's a huge honor.
I don't like being on camera. I don't like to be in front. Like, I am the person my whole life, servant leader, behind the scenes, all the pieces. I mean, if you look at any place I've been and programs or systems, if I was the impetus to like make that happen, it was okay, because I never needed my name attached to it or to be out for the fanfare. That's not who or what I was. But to be able to be like vulnerable and in my skin and be like, it's okay to share the hard stuff and it's okay to tell that story because other people are telling my story.
Yeah.
Other people have made up the story and it's like, what? Yeah. And you hear it and it's fascinating. And I'm like, oh, that's totally interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like either people love you or like really despise you. And it's like, that's so interesting because I may have like 2 words or never have like approached an individual. So that part, but there was a reason we met. We met. My network has like exploded 100 times, over in the last year. And it was such a compassionate moment meeting you and then having this opportunity, but to come in here and know like, Jason, I'm going to cry. Jason, I don't think I can talk about those things. You're not the
first one.
People just don't talk about those things because you get, you really almost, I don't know, silenced, in the sense of like, it's not popular to talk about things professionally in some of those arenas. It's not popular to talk about some of that stuff personally. But the truth is it needs to be talked about. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be able to be addressed without the political BS that gets involved with all of it.
Fuck the politics. We need to talk to each other as humans.
Right.
As the human experience is very similar for a lot of us. So vulnerability is really hard. And it's not easy to get through. But it's when you get to a point where you're in gratitude and you're full of joy, even in the shit. Like you made it, but that's sometimes takes some work. I go back to like there's a darkness that you have to go through before you get to that light, and to hear you say that to me about podcasting, like we're just winging this. I'm just gonna be real. I've
laughed, I've cried, I've been through all the emotions. So you know what you're doing.
Yeah, like for us, but this is why we're doing it because we think stories matter. And you talk about like God put something in your stomach or your gut. I feel like that is here. Like I'm at the end of the day, I sell real estate. I have been, and through that journey, through COVID, all that stuff, and meeting businesses, we realized that like the stories that are in our community are amazing. And what if we just helped each other and I could just talk to somebody that's been through the ringer and has overcome it and now they could help, but they're right in my neighborhood. Like it truly takes a village. So like to me, like we're out here, we're interviewing, we do think stories matter, but it's more so like we're interviewing you because it's going to take all of us because we all have our own struggles. We all have our different journeys. But if we come from it, very much what you've been talking about throughout this podcast is from a servant mindset of like, can we just be real? Like one of my friends was like, can you have just put what you're feeling on your T-shirt? And if everybody did that, shit would just be simpler because they're like, oh man, I'm sorry. Or yeah, are you okay? Or like, screw you, you're an asshole. Why do you have that on your shirt? Whatever it is, if we were just real with each other, I think, especially locally, we could have stronger communities and those stronger communities could grow to stronger nations, But it starts in each one of our own little palatines, each own little community. So we could talk all day. Let's close this up. If people are looking to connect with you, either for your services or just to collaborate, maybe it's a podcast, who knows?
Yeah.
Where should they go?
I would say LinkedIn. So Kimberly Dahlem, find me on LinkedIn.
Cool.
And we'll start there.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
For sure.
So awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. I appreciate the connection from Cindy to introduce us so that I could help pull your story out, my friend. So
thank you.
I look forward to the future. So thank you so much. So,
thank you so much.
My friends, stories matter. Let's just get real with each other. Life's hard. And if we help each other because we share our own vulnerabilities, like maybe the world just looks a little bit different because right now it's kind of a hot mess. And there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of hate that's out there. Screw that. Let's understand each other's stories. And let's look at our own story. Let's give ourselves grace. And let's try to help people through our own struggles, just like our friend Kimberly here is doing. My friends, thank you so much for listening. Support local, love local. We're stronger together. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.